Welcome into another great episode of I've Got a Theory. I'm your host, Henish Karl, and I've got on PSTV founder and multi-business entrepreneur, Karl Stedman.
Hey, Henish. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for joining me. This is our second episode together, but you've been producing and listening to my shows for since the beginning, since you're basically my partner in all this. So thanks for joining me again. And thank you to our sponsor, Manscaped, helping men's body parts stay well groomed
and smooth, super smooth.
And smooth. And as we were just chatting about, they're having some nice products here, right? All these different lotions and stuff like that, like the ball toner. Like.
How would that work on your head? Because I mean, it's ball shaped and it's smooth. Like it might actually improve. Like I don't know, when you shave on your head and everything too.
This is it's whenever, and this is the directions. I'm just reading them. I haven't opened this yet. For an anytime pick me up, spritz your goods once or twice. Let air dry.
So, that sounds awesome.
and here's something interesting. I just learned about this because we're based here in San Diego. Guess where Manscaped is based?
San Diego?
San Diego.
Really?
This is made in the USA, ingredient source worldwide, and distributed by Manscaped Inc. here in San Diego. We could have Manscaped people visit us in person with some proper social distancing and a mask or something and chat with us about the best way to use your ball reviver.
I mean, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, because it's the toner, and there's like multiple products in here just for it, and it was, and I thought just the bar soap was adequate, but I was grossly misinformed when I was learning men's grooming 101 at 12 to 14 years old.
I mean, products improve over time, right? It's just getting specialized.
That's true, and when I'm just using like whatever cheap lotion is available at the grocery store and on discount or on discontinue, and then I try my wife's lotion, and I realize that I should probably get better lotions.
Yeah. I have that issue with my head. It's like sometimes, usually I just use my body soap, Old Spice specifically.
Yeah.
But when I don't have that, or when I'm just like when like I'm traveling and I have, like my skin doesn't react well to the hard soap itself, and I can tell the difference dramatically. And then when I put on shaving lotion, it's amazing.
Yeah, products do make a big difference. Yeah, once you find your thing, you kind of stay loyal to it. You're like, all right, maybe, and I've done it in the past where I'm like, let me try a little bit something different. I'm like, that was disappointing. Yeah, so like I've used Dove bar soap for years, and anytime I use like regular soap, I'm like, I feel like a little scummy.
Yeah.
And is there more of this is going to come off my skin, or am I just going to feel like waxy all day? Like, how does this work?
Just preserving your skin. That's all.
Yeah, I guess so. It's locking in moisture, I guess. I'm not sure. I don't know how that works. I mean, I'm just glad I don't have pimples and, and weird skin issues, I suppose. And so we're fortunate, I guess, So yeah. If you have skin issues, we're not trying to be biased or rude against those with less skin issues. But I got my problems. I got like little bald spots and stuff here. It's called localized alopecia, and apparently it happens from stress. So I get like more of these when I'm more stressed. It looks like I have like continents forming on my beard. Do you see that? So it's bare. But like there's been times in the past where I've had like multiple big patches. I'm like, this doesn't look good. I got to chill out a little bit more.
Yeah. My issue with shaving is on the back of my neck. I get little tiny pimples sometimes, and it's I think it's razor burn a little bit and like an old razor or something. But other than that, it's pretty easy.
Well, so, the bottom line is thanks to Manscaped for helping with the show. You get these razors and blades, and it's got lights and stuff, so you can get right in there and light things up. And
that's impressive.
It's got some good juice on it. So if you go to manscaped.com and use the code I've Got a Theory, all one word, no punctuation, you're getting some discounts and free goodies and stuff too. So check it out. And as the box says, your balls will thank you. But hopefully your significant other should be appreciative as well, because you just spritzed your goods with some ball toner. So let's get to our theory. And this is one I picked up today because one of my reading sources is National Geographic. I don't know if it's going to be pegged as liberal bias on this thing or some kind of democratic publication, but I would argue that National Geographic tries to be independent and just authoritative and science-based, right?
Yeah.
They don't get into politics at all. And so they covered a lot in several of the articles in this month's issue is about coronavirus and how it's changed our lives and what it's done to us impactfully. And so a big section was on the climate response and the pollution and the CO2 emissions, and where we're trending, how much of a blip that having a few months off for the whole planet with reduced airplane and vehicle and industry producing smoke into the air has improved our carbon output and just overall pollution levels and all measurable effects just in the first few months of coronavirus, right? So we're in November right now, and the world basically shut down from March to June or something like that, and then slowly started reopening. And there was a massive decrease in pollution. Yeah. And so my theory is that coronavirus seems to be suspicious, right? I mean, we're hearing of people dying. They all have other causes. But I'm wondering if there's a misinformation campaign propagated by collusion amongst world scientists and climate change proponents to put this thing out and fix it as a example of how much we can improve the environment with just some concentrated efforts to reduce pollution and make an example of it. Say, hey, you didn't think climate change was real? We'll take a look. We shut down the planet for a few months and everything got a lot better.
Yeah.
Birds were singing, right? Frogs were multiplying. The waters were cleaner. The cities didn't have smog.
I heard stories of animals actually going into cities and starting to take over little areas, which is kind of crazy.
That's incredible, right? And almost, encouraged. And so, we heard about that. They were showing robot wolves that they're starting to install because bears are starting to roam around because there was less people activity in so many places, right? Mm-hmm. Where they used to be deterred from showing up because typically animals don't want to, wild animals don't want to interact with humans for the most part.
Not at all. They're more afraid of you than you are of them.
So that's my theory, Karl. So I think that, the climate change scientists might have had some kind of worldwide collusion and said, hey, let's see if we can use this. And maybe they didn't cause coronavirus, but maybe they use this as what's called a policy window, right? Mm-hmm. And said, hey, this is a good opportunity for us to flex our muscles and say, I told you climate change is real. We just, you stop driving for a couple months and all of a sudden we can breathe the air again in these cities, right? And one of the estimates that showed in the article that I was reading that in one city in China alone, just the decreased carbon output from their cars, factories, planes had saved an estimated 90,000 lives in that one city alone from pollution. 90,000 people had been saved.
No, the question is, were they individuals with like lung disease, individuals with asthma, all that other stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't specify all that kind of detail. But the theory is that, based on the trend of how many people there were dying attributed to pollution had decreased by that much, where they estimated about 90,000 people had been saved because of the pollution decrease due to coronavirus.
I can believe it. The first thought that came to mind when you first told me about this was it is very difficult for a large group of people to collude. So I'm not quite sure that that it was a preconceived notion to go out and take advantage.
You don't think they have a Facebook page like climate? No, they don't think you have to join and prove that you're a climate scientist, and they all got on the same page and said, "Let's do a Zoom call with all 500 of us and figure this out."
No, probably not.
Okay,
they're trying to keep under wraps. Okay. However, I definitely can see the group as a whole taking advantage of the situation to further their messaging simply because it's so cut and dry. Like you can't argue with numbers like that. You just can't.
Right.
And if you are, it's almost like you're just lying to yourself. And we live in an environment of a lot of fake news, a lot of falsified information, a lot of polarization. But with something that's staunch and that's starch, you can't argue with it. So I don't fault them at all for trying to further their agenda, because ultimately it helps us. Like, it ultimately, I do everything I do for my kids' kids to give them an option in the future, because we're
Yep.
going down a path that it's not sustainable. We have a finite amount of resources, and pollution alone, if it's saving like 90,000 individuals in a city from a few months, like if we ever get to the point where we become extremely efficient or even a net zero producer of energy, like that would be an amazing thing for our future generations. We probably won't see a ton of it just because we've already had 120 years of industrial revolution pollution going forward. It's going to take a while to clean up the oceans, clean up pollution around the air, basically scrub it. But we still should do it. I mean,
We still should do it,
day,
yeah. And I think this proved how quickly resilient the planet is, right?
Oh, yeah.
In a few months, cities are saying, holy cow, I can see for more than half a mile because it's not smog choking the air across our city because people aren't driving, right? And that's huge. And that's gotta feel better, right? And so now at this point, even if we went to like no pollution or did every single drastic, it's the temperature increase still happens. They're predicting up to 2070. But where it gets catastrophic is if it increases by 3 degrees Celsius. And I think they're trying to keep it under 1.7 degrees. And so we know it's coming. We know it's warming up, and it's hard to stop that. But yeah, based on their projections, we've got to do a lot more, right? And it's not happening fast enough for us to decrease our dependence on oil. And aviation, accounts for 60% of the air pollution, right? People don't think that these jets are causing a lot. So when we stopped flying, that was a huge chunk of it. And on all sectors on the charts that were in this article, usage decreased except for residential household, where it went up 3% because now everyone's working from home. So now we're using a little bit more electricity and power and gas and stuff at home. But for cars, transportation, aviation, cruise ships are notoriously some of the worst polluters in the planet. Those weren't working anymore either, right? They're just docked up, loaded with coronavirus passengers, and now they're not spewing fumes all over the planet because they're registered in Barbados or something where they don't have emissions rules, right? That's kind of how that goes down.
I heard that I believe it was one of the major cruise lines, one of the top 3. They just got basically a notice from the secretary. No, who's did it? The AD. No, Attorney General. There we go.
AG,
My brain's all crazy right now.
All good.
But they have to register their ships prior to coming into U.S. waters and certify that they did not actually pollute prior to that for a certain number of days, which goes to show that, like, if they are requiring that for every single port and every single ship that comes into U.S. waters, like, it's a massive issue.
Yeah.
So yeah, them being out of business, yeah, of course it's going to help, and it's truly amazing because I think if humans were not on the earth anymore, like we just got wiped out as a species, it would only take the earth a few years, maybe a decade, to start really cleaning itself up and becoming pristine again.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I've ultimately thought about is that we're basically a virus on this planet. Literally, we are overpopulating. We're just consuming, which is identical to a virus in a host.
Yep.
So I don't know. It's food for thought.
Until we create the next best thing, right? Which is robotics and technology and autonomous and artificial intelligence, because that's clean energy. Those things use clean energy, right? And I think that's kind of the goal. And I wonder if there's some kind of unconscious consciousness of the planet that understands that, right? That says, hey humans, we realize you needed to abuse the planet to get this far, but eventually get it right, because the planet's going to survive. You guys might not.
Yeah, exactly. And right. It's kind of funny that you're talking about a collective consciousness. We all exude energy. Like outside of our body, our thoughts have, we produce a magnetic field around us. So we'll just start from the very base facts that you can't actually disagree with. it would not surprise me if the magnetic fields or the electrical fields that we create, we're basically living batteries, interact. So a collective consciousness from a energetic level across the world, the universe, whatever, that doesn't actually surprise me too much. Um, it makes it kind of interesting in the fact that we're finally waking up because of all the crazy things that have been happening. I mean, look at all the hurricanes that are happening right now, the tornadoes, the droughts, the fires in California. Like all of these weather systems are becoming basically
extreme.
outsized.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's almost like if we have a cold, our body starts heating up to kill it. It starts getting into extreme conditions to kill whatever it may be that's not supposed to be there, which is ultimately kind of what the Earth's doing. So
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
yeah, it's identical. Like it's you can think of the Earth as our host, and we are just a organism that's basically spreading as much as possible. But the good thing is we're conscious. Now I don't know if we have a great collective consciousness of doing the right things as a species, but
we forget quickly.
Yes.
We forget quickly, right? The amnesia behind these kind of things is fast, right? Because we're always here for the now and the next moment, as opposed to what happened last week, last year, last 100 years.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a huge flaw with our species.
Well, so Karl, this is going to take a wicked twist, but I would argue that some of the natural substances on the planet, aka psychedelics, kind of can tap into that consciousness, right?
I can see that.
And I'll admit to have experienced some of this, and I've had these kind of conversations with the consciousness, or at least I believed I did, with the consciousness under the influence of some really good mushrooms.
Yeah.
And so, and it had that was exactly the conversation. The plan was basically saying, hey, use us, abuse us, do it right, but get to the next level, right? Because ultimately, there is some point of this being, and some would argue that it's to increase complexity, right? Others, I read another book that argued that the purpose of the universe is to spread energy, right? And to go from simple atoms like hydrogen and helium and get more complicated into carbon, into oxygen, into nitrogen, all these other things that they use more energy, right? Just the molecular structure used. And then to get more complicated into things like gas balls that burn plasma from nuclear fission, it's spreading energy.
Yeah.
Right. And so now if you get to creating life, we're using and burning energy on this planet. We're taking the sun's energy, growing a planet, and now we're spreading energy. Right. And everything natural based is based on the basis of spreading energy. It's an interesting concept of what our purpose is. And so if we can create AI that roams the universe and continues to spread energy and understand how it works, we can tap into things like warp drives and other things that use massive amounts of energy, right? That's the goal. Our goal is to figure out how to use this massive amount of energy as we continue to understand how the universe works.
Yeah, and that speaks to the expansion of the universe itself. If you actually look at the universe's underlying foundation, it's spreading faster than the speed of light.
Yeah.
And it's going out. Now, I've heard multiple theories on what will happen after. Will it start to reach a point and then start contracting on itself? But the most likely scenario to me is we spread to a large enough volume that energy gets so dispersed that temperatures start dropping, and you start getting into a much colder environment on a universal level. At that point, it really comes down to, okay, how do we switch our consciousness from just our bag of bones and skin and stuff into something that can survive an environment? Now that's in millions of years, mind you, so I'm making a massive leap of assumptions.
Sure.
But it's spreading energy at the foundational base. That's exactly what's happening.
Yeah. So going back to my theory, it might just be a policy window, right? I mean, obviously, the purpose of this podcast is spread awareness, but it is now spreading the awareness that coronavirus has created an opportunity for climate change specialists and scientists and believers to say, see, I told you so.
Mm-hmm. And even more so, it's helping improve their models for future predictions.
True.
Like all this data is going to drastically improve models of storm predictions, global warming, all of that.
Yeah, and global warming, especially CO2 output. And now we can say, hey, here's a worldwide experiment that we just ran, and all time before and after is the control, right? Because they've already showed that once they stopped the lockdowns in some of those cities in China, pollution went up higher than they were before, right? People trying to catch up on how much they polluted for those months. They're like, let's double down and make sure they're, keeping it in second gear when we should be shifting up to third to run a little quieter. But I'm obviously exaggerating on that point, but I think it's made its point, right? We've seen this happen ourselves, where even the parks were closed and now trails are grown over, right? You're like, and it was only a few months. You're like, crap. If you don't walk down this road, it gets grown over real quick, and you're going to lose track of where the path is now.
Yeah. I saw this graphic. It was a representation of what would happen if humanity just died, and how fast it would take the world to actually get back to pre-human human conditions. And like, it won't take very long. I think days and weeks for infrastructure starting to break down.
Yeah, Chernobyl was prime example.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
When you see those videos of those buildings just beat up by plants, right? A plant will grow straight through a building and rip it apart by concrete by concrete. I've done houses like that, where trees grew through houses and ripped a house apart.
Really?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's on the homepage of my website. If you ever check it out, it'll show you before and afters of this house up here in Mount Soledad that we bought. Trees were going through the pool, through the windows, in through the house. And a woman was living there.
Oh wow.
She was living there, abandoned by our family for various, some would say, good reasons, because she embezzled money from a school district. And she was sleeping on the couch in this 5-bedroom, 2,800 square foot house. She slept on the couch in the family room, surrounded by her junk, with the plants growing in through it.
Dang, that's crazy.
So Chernobyl and houses that are abandoned in San Diego, plants grow fast. I mean, they're tenacious. They're like, okay, there's some space, let's fill it.
Yeah, exactly. Spreading energy
and using energy from the ground, from the water, from the earth, from the sun, and spreading. So that's my theory, Karl.
I like it. I mean, I can't argue with it.
It's probably not a global collusion effort, but it is a good learning point, and it is a good example to show, hey, here's what can happen if we focus our efforts and try to save the ability for humans to continue to live on the planet, because we're not just saving the planet, right? Yeah. And granted, we are wiping out species and forests at a super fast level, which stinks. But at the same point, we got to get through this next threshold of, let's stop abusing the planet so we can achieve our scientific goals, exploratory goals, and our goals to spread energy without just burning down our habitat.
I mean,
we're on Biosphere 1, right?
It's we either get off planet or we make this sustainable. Those are the two choices. So.
Yep. Well, Karl, appreciate your time and chatting with me about this climate change coronavirus-based theory. Appreciate again to Manscaped for sponsoring. And if you like the show, please subscribe. Follow us on PSTV, xyz.xyz. .com.
PSTVtoday.com.
PSTVtoday.com. Thank you for the update on that. And any other final words?
Thank you for having me. Like, I enjoy talking to you. It's great conversations all the time. So thank you for having me, man.
My pleasure. Karl, catch you soon.
All right.
Thank you.